As promised, came out to the beach today. I like making my viewers happy. It's a pretty decent day out here to be at the beach. It's not too windy, and you guys can see the waves and the beautiful water. It's pretty empty out here. I figured this would be a good spot to talk about buyer's remorse. And it's not going to be the typical buyer's remorse video where I chronicle different buyer's remorse stories and what happens to people. Rather, I found a story that talks about how you can cure your buyer's remorse. And I thought it was kind of funny, so I wanted to share with you the things that they have to say about what you should do if you're somebody who does have buyer's remorse. Because, as you guys probably know, you've probably seen this statistic before, that according to a survey that was done by Clever Real Estate in early 2023, literally 93% of the home buyers in that survey said that they have some level of buyer's remorse and that they compromise on their priorities when purchasing a home. And over half of those people also cited the fact that they ended up with a higher than desirable interest rate on that purchase. So sounds like they got screwed from both ends, if you ask me. Not only are they paying more for the house, they didn't get what they wanted in the house, and on top of that, they're making the banks rich by getting a higher interest rate than they were hoping for. And the reality is, a lot of these people put themselves into an uncomfortable financial situation to make this happen, guys, and that is not sustainable in the long run. And that's why you're starting to see more of these people sell now, even at a loss. Let's go over some of the things that they say you should do if you find yourself in a buyer's remorse situation. The first one is hilarious. They say refinance. If it has been at least 6 months since you bought your home, you might be eligible for a refinance. Refinancing your mortgage can help you secure a lower rate, making your payments a little more manageable each month. So tell me who bought a home in the past 2 or 3 years where refinancing right now would actually save them any money, guys. That's basically nobody. Because these people who are saying they got a higher rate than they were hoping for probably have like a 6% interest rate, and now they'd be looking at 7.5% if their credit is stellar. So how does that make any sense, first of all? Oh, that's right, it doesn't. But hey, they got to put out things like this to try and soothe the souls of people that overpaid for houses. And somebody asked me to show how expensive it is to refinance a house, which I'm going to get into later in this video. But first, let's get through this list of what they tell you to do in case you have buyer's remorse. The next thing is they say you should sell or rent the property. Duh. But then again, what's the problem with this? Well, there's a couple things. If you're a recent buyer and you bought in the last couple of years, there's a possibility you might not be able to sell for a profit right now. If you can and you have buyer's remorse, then you should absolutely do it. That's for sure. Now, when it comes to renting and becoming a landlord, that's a tricky one, guys, because I'm willing to bet that probably almost everyone who bought a house during this pandemic run-up didn't do the numbers. They didn't check to see if this house would make a good investment as well if I had to turn around and rent it because I don't want the house anymore, or life happens and I have to get rid of it. Most people probably didn't do that, and the house might not work as a rental. First of all, you might not be able to make any cash flow from the property after paying your high property taxes, your high insurance bills, as well as your mortgage and any other expenses that come along with maintaining that house. There's a decent chance you might not be able to turn it into a rental and make it profitable. So there's that. Also, a lot of people did not buy these homes to become a landlord. They bought these homes in order to have a place to live. And for whatever reason they're not happy with their purchase, they want to get out of it. So selling is going to be the much more likely option for most people in this situation rather than becoming a landlord. Now, the third piece of advice they give I actually think isn't that bad, and they say renovate the house. Okay, yeah, maybe that's a good idea, unless you already bought a house that's turnkey, which a lot of people did, because that's what most home buyers want today. So there's not much you can do on the renovation front if the house has already been remodeled. Doesn't really make sense to do it again from a cost standpoint. But if that is one of the pain points and one of the reasons you don't like the house, then maybe it is worth a renovation. But they say, because construction costs are cheaper now than they were a year ago, it might not be such a bad idea to renovate the house rather than try to offload it in order to offset your buyer's remorse. And I think largely that can be good advice if that's the only thing you're not happy with the house, because no amount of renovation is going to change the location of the house or change the size of the house unless you're putting on an addition. So it kind of depends on what your buyer's remorse is referring to, if this makes any sense. Also, you got to look at the cost to renovate the house, guys. Like if it's going to cost you 50 grand to renovate the house, you might be better off just selling that house and taking the equity and putting it into a different house, if you have any equity, that is. Because if you put a small down payment and you live in an area where home prices have been going down, there's a chance you might walk away from the closing with nothing or even have to pay a little bit of money. So there's that. But they do give some specific examples here. They say, listen, if your house is too dark, get some quotes for recessed lighting. If it's always cold, you know, look at getting weather stripping and doors and windows done. So yeah, if it's those little quality of life things that are bothering you about the house, then sure, maybe that's what you need to do and just upgrade the house, and then it might be good enough for you for a while. One thing that they say to do is to write down all the reasons you purchased the house, and it might help you feel better about the purchase and make it easier to accept your buyer's remorse, which, you know what, guys, I'm afraid that a lot of people probably don't have a very long list of reasons that they bought these houses, other than the fact that they were afraid that they'd never be able to buy a house if they didn't get one now. Now this next one they say is pretty funny. They say fill it up, meaning fill your home with things that make you happy, and you may start to regret your decision a little bit less. Now this is obviously more of a psychological trick than an actual fix to buyer's remorse. But they say the more things you put inside the house that you love and you enjoy, and the more likely you are to forget about your buyer's remorse, guys. Well, that's kind of true for anywhere you live. Doesn't matter if you bought or you rent a place, whatever. How many people already don't do this? How many people fill their house up with things that they don't like, you know? It's kind of a stupid suggestion, and it just goes to show you kind of how weak a lot of these suggestions are in terms of helping people feel better about their mistakes that they made with buying these overpriced homes. So one thing I said earlier is that we were going to get into the weeds a little bit on the cost to refinance a home, because this is something you keep hearing over and over again. All the real estate experts are telling you, marry the house, date the rate, right? You know, which means buy the house today, refinance later down the road. Check out this video if you didn't see it, guys. I made a whole video about this recently, in case you're unaware of what they're trying to push with this. But here's what it actually costs to refinance a house if you need to. And it's a lot more than you might think. Now, just looking at the average of what it costs to refinance a house across the country is almost $2,400. So that's not too bad, but that largely depends on your lender. It depends on the value of your home and the size of the mortgage that you need. Because in general, you can expect to pay anywhere between 2 to 5% of the loan principal amount in closing costs when you go to refinance your property. So for example, if you have a $200,000 mortgage, your refinance might cost you between $4,000 and $10,000 depending on your lender, guys. So that's a lot of money, 4 to 10 grand, and that's only on a $200,000 mortgage. I'm willing to bet that most people have a mortgage much higher than that, considering that the median home price today is over $400K. Now let's look at this little chart from Bankrate that goes to show you all the different costs that come along with refinancing. You have application fees, origination or underwriting fees, recording fee, appraisal fee, credit check, title services, survey fee, attorney and closing fee. So is it really worth it to refinance? Largely depends. They give a good example here of, let's say you have a mortgage of $400,000 at a 7.5% interest rate, and then 5 years later you want to refinance it. Your new balance is $378,000 how much you owe, which just goes to show you how little equity you earned in 5 years, by the way. You basically earned $22,000 in equity over 5 years, which is practically nothing. But let's say you want to go down to a 6.5% interest rate, which is a full percentage point lower than what you have right now. So even if you get a 2% closing cost refinance, that's going to cost you $7,569, guys. That is a lot of money. Your payments will go down from $27.97 a month to $23.92 a month, which is a $405 per month difference. So at that rate, it would take you about 19 months to break even, and that is for the sum of your monthly payment reductions to surpass the $7,569 it took you in closing costs to refinance that property. So that's almost 2 years just to break even. So if you're planning on selling your house in the next couple of years, first of all, a refinance is going to be a no-go, guys, because you're not going to come out ahead with it. And the other thing that's completely glossed over here that's not even mentioned is the fact that you're starting a brand new loan when you refinance. You paid interest on this house for 5 years at 7.5%. You're going to go down to 6.5% and restart that amortization, okay? Because the first half of your loan, whether it's a 15-year loan, 30-year loan, doesn't matter, the lion's share of it goes towards interest payments. You're not paying down as much principal of the house as you think you are. And this math in the beginning shows it, guys. 5 years of making payments, you made $22,000 in equity. That's not very good progress. So of course they're going to tell you to refinance because this makes the banks rich. They're continually getting a good amount of interest from you, even if it's at a lower rate, because you restarted your mortgage amortization period, which is excellent news for them. Now, one of my viewers, Evan, he wrote me an email recently with this property that was bought in a brand new development just 2 years ago. So lots of home building's been happening over the past several years. It's still happening right now. The amount of new build permits is actually through the roof right now. And we're gonna see a lot of brand new houses come to market over the next few years. However, this property over in Oregon, where Evan lives, was bought 2 years ago, back in July of 2021, for $394,000. So they bought it as an investment. They rented it for a couple of years, as we can see on the price history here. But as of today, they're trying to sell this house. So they listed it back in August for $465,000 and have done several price cuts. Fast forward to today, beginning of December, they're at $415,000, guys, which is not that much more than they paid for this house. They're literally only 20 grand away from what they paid. So even if they were able to get the price they're asking right now, by the time they pay closing costs, they pay commissions, they pay all of the fees related with selling this house, they're going to come out negative. They're going to lose money on the sale of this house, even at a higher price. And my guess is the price of this house is going to have to come down even further in order to get it sold, potentially even past what they paid for it 2 years ago. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because of everything we're talking about here. Talk about buyer's remorse, guys. Like, how would you like it if you bought a house 2 years ago and essentially it's worth less today than it was then? But don't worry, all the real estate agents are saying, you know, hold on to the house for 5 years and magically it's gonna go up in value. Oh, really? Well, didn't happen to these people. And you have all these fools like Dave Ramsey saying, you know, refinance later on. Guys, I just showed you how much it costs to refinance a house. It's very expensive. And guess what? If you can't afford the cost to refinance and you still want to do it, they will roll the cost of that refinance into the cost of your new loan. So essentially, it will just put you further into debt and increase your payment to include all the fees that are there for the refinance. Does that sound like something you want to do? Does that sound like a financial position you want to be in? Because these are the things that people are being told to do right now at the end of 2023, moving into 2024. On one of my videos earlier this week, I talked about how people are getting these huge insurance increases across the country. It's not just here in Florida. And one of my viewers that commented on this video literally wrote why insurance is a ripoff, guys. Look at what he said. An associate of mine years ago, who was an independent insurance agent, said, if the insurance company thought there was a real chance that they would have to pay a claim to you, they wouldn't insure you. The $500 collision insurance deductible on automobile policies is one way that insurance companies eliminate 80% of all claims. By the way, half of all automotive accidents happen in parking lots. Now, obviously that's kind of referring to auto insurance, but that applies to the insurance industry as a whole because that's exactly their business model. Let's collect the maximum amount of premiums and pay out the lowest amount we can in claims, okay? And so if an insurance company thought they were gonna have to pay out a claim to you and they thought you were a high risk, they wouldn't give you insurance. That's perfect. That's exactly how this works, guys. And this is coming from his friend that works in the insurance industry. So it's not like Michael's making this up on YouTube. This is what people have told us who work in the business, guys. And so you know it's true. That's why you're starting to see these insurance companies pull out of places like California and Florida, because they know that they are going to be paying out claims in these areas, and they don't want to. This does not jive with their business model. And it's also why you're seeing the remaining companies that do write policies here charge a tremendous amount of money, because they know it's not if, but when they're going to have to pay out the next claim. And you know, the other day I shared Carol's story, who's over in Washington State, on how much her insurance went up at her building. That was a 364% increase for her. But this is happening in other places, guys. Louisiana, okay? DJ sent me this story of a retired nurse who saw her homeowner's insurance triple just this year, and now she can't afford her house. She's a 71-year-old retired school teacher. She lives in Slidell, Louisiana, and she's been in this house for more than 30 years. She used to pay $1,800 per year for homeowner's insurance, and now she just got her renewal, and it went up to $5,600. So imagine that. The rate triples in just 1 year, and now magically you're supposed to come up with this money, and if you can't, you're screwed. Because if you have a mortgage on the house, you cannot go without insurance, guys. You must have it. And even if this woman's lucky enough to have no mortgage, clearly she's not in the financial position to self-insure, because if she can't pay this higher insurance premium, she's definitely not going to be able to pay if something happens to her house without insurance. So this woman's retired, living on a fixed income, and she said she can't afford to live here anymore. And it's really complicated right now, because even if she can sell her house at a higher price, where's she going to go? Because the interest rates are high, home prices are high. So even if she makes well on her house, how is she going to go somewhere else, guys? It's going to be very difficult. Most likely, people who are in this position are going to be forced to sell their houses and downsize to a much smaller house, a different state where home prices are cheaper and insurance is cheaper, or if they want to stay in the area, probably downsize to a small condo or something like that, which comes with its own set of risks as well. So there's really no good solution to this problem. And you know, she's 71, she's dealing with health issues, she has diabetes, she's on the list to get a kidney transplant. So imagine dealing with all that stuff while getting hit with these bills and being faced with the reality that you might become homeless soon. She said she's repeatedly checked with her homeowner's insurance agent, and they said that this is the best they can do. They can't find anything cheaper. Here's a couple of tips that insurance agents say to do in this situation. They say, well, look at getting a new roof, because if you get a new roof, you might be able to lower your premium substantially. But yeah, that new roof's going to cost you a lot of money, guys. And if it only knocks a few bucks off your insurance with a new roof, chances are the cost of that new roof is not going to be worth it. And also, let's face it, if you can't afford $5,600 a year in insurance, you probably can't afford a $15,000 or $20,000 new roof either. Another thing insurance agents say to do is look at your coverage limits. Your policy might include more contents coverage than you need. And that's all the stuff that's inside your house, and you might not have that much stuff. So reducing that number will help you reduce your premium. So yeah, if your house is filled with things that can easily be replaced in terms of financial value, then maybe it makes sense to do that. How much is it really going to save you? Probably not enough, if I had to guess. But he says really they want to see more done on a state level. The insurance industry in Louisiana is also begging the Louisiana officials to do something about this, which sounds pretty similar to the situation here in Florida and now in California as well. Which state's going to be next on the chopping block? Only time will tell. I'm willing to bet that insurance reformers are going to be begging for a long time, because if it's anything like the story I told you guys the other day, where this man wrote all of the representatives in the state of Florida to try and do something of what's happening to the insurance at his building, finally got a meeting with one of them, and the guy walked right past him, wouldn't acknowledge him, wouldn't shake his hand, wouldn't do anything. So these politicians probably could care less about this situation, because these guys are living high on the hog off of our dime, off of our tax dollars, and they can afford these increases. They don't care if you can afford it. All they care about is what they have to say to you next to get reelected. I've even had people here in the channel say, oh, Michael, you should run for mayor, you should run for Congress, you should do all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, thing is, guys, I probably wouldn't win, because I can't lie to people, I'm here on the channel to my best ability, giving you the truth of what's happening on a practically daily basis. And I'm not going to compromise my own personal integrity and compromise my ability to sleep at night in order to lie to people just to get into Congress. Because even if I were to be able to get elected on truth, it's going to be me versus everybody else. And if nobody else wants to make the necessary changes that need to be done to make this country great, then how am I going to do it alone? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'll never do it. We'll see in the future. I'm still young. Things change. But for now, I'm pretty happy right here on YouTube, talking to you guys, keeping you updated, and just helping people navigate this crazy mess we call the US economy. So I hope you guys enjoyed another beach walk out here. And if you did, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here. And I'll see you in the next one.